Bibles are open there at Psalm 27. Last Wednesday night we looked at the first half of this psalm and felt led of the Lord to come back and to look here at the second half of this psalm with us tonight. We often hear about the man Job. Whenever we hear of somebody going through some difficulties, we often use the phrase, especially those who handle difficulties well, they have the patience of Job. And it's meant as a compliment to them because they are enduring hard times and affliction, and that is definitely a character trait all of us probably feel like we could use more work with, and we don't go asking the Lord to do that because we know what that entails many times. But patience is something very important. And as we looked here earlier this last Wednesday, we saw in verse number 4 of Psalm 27, the desire of David's heart was to be with the Lord. He's had a desire to walk with Him, to be in His tabernacle, to be there around all the sacrifices and all the things that were a part of the worship of God. And those things have been taken away from him. He had been run out of the country of no fault of his own. He has not been able to be in the tabernacle, to be with the fellow believers and worshipers, and oh, how his heart longed to be back there. And he says this here, "One thing have I desired of the Lord, and that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in His temple." How David so longed and desired to be there in the temple. We look down here at verse number 14, here at the end of this chapter, and David gives us some encouraging words that he was having to live at that very moment. You know, it's one thing, it's easy for us many times to get up and give advice or to give counsel when we're not the one going through the rough waters. But it's a hard thing to give the counsel that is as much pointed at you as it is at anybody else. Look at verse 14. He says, "Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and He shall strengthen thine heart." Wait, I say, on the Lord. David could say that because he knew what it was to have the Lord strengthen his heart while he was in the midst of trouble, in the midst of difficulty. He's not writing this from an ivory palace. He's not writing this on beds of ease. In fact, he is writing this while he is out in the wilderness on the run in search of trying to preserve his life. And he says, wait on the Lord. I know that is the thing to do many times as we go through those difficult times, that waiting period, we find ourselves beginning to lose heart. We find ourselves beginning to wonder, is it worth it all? We begin to think that maybe God is gone and He has forgotten all about us, or He doesn't hear us. And that's where David is here to encourage the reader to take courage from the Lord. He wants them to know you've not been forgotten. He doesn't turn a deaf ear to His child. There might be some things that have to be taken care of. He talks about this in Psalm 66. "If I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear me." Sometimes God doesn't answer prayer because we've got iniquity. We've got sin that needs to be dealt with. He's pointed it out already to us, but that word iniquity there indicates a stubbornness about our sin. It seems like there are some sins we have an easy time letting go of. Somebody says, "Hey, you're doing wrong." "Oh, you're right," and we can turn from that very easily. But there are other sins that we enjoy. Our flesh enjoys it. If we didn't enjoy it, we wouldn't do it. Right? You know, and the writer of Hebrews says, warns about that sin that does so easily beset us. That sin that every time it comes up, I mean, it seems like it gets us every single time. He says, we need help to deal with those things. And sometimes it is a sin that breaks the lines of communication. I mentioned this, I think, Sunday morning here, that we never lose our relationship with God. Aren't you glad for that? Amen. But we do lose fellowship. Yeah. Psalm 51 speaks to that. "Restore unto me the joy of thy salvation." Whenever we're living in sin, it's hard to enjoy salvation. Yeah. I mean, we're still saved. Thank the Lord for that. You know, if we could lose our salvation, we'd be like some others who teach, you got to get saved every Sunday. I'm amazed. There are some churches that have 20 people saved every Sunday. But they haven't grown a single bit in the last 30 years, and they're still having 30 show up for church. Well, how does that happen? Well, they're teaching folks you can lose your salvation. You know, we can't lose our salvation, but we can lose our fellowship. The Bible talks about, in fact, David talks about this. I didn't write the psalm down, but he talks about this here where at one point he had harbored sin, that sin with Bathsheba, and then the murder of Uriah. He had harbored that. And it took 2 years, almost 2 years, that Nathan finally came and showed up to the doorstep, and he pointed the finger and said, "Thou art the man." David talked of that time in the Psalms there. He said that his bones begin to dry up inside of him. Oh, it just got so dry. Many of those who know the history and whatnot, they say that you look through the history and they look for through David's life, and the historians and those who know Jewish history say David didn't write a single psalm during that period. And there was no fellowship. There was no song in our hearts. The Bible says, speaking to yourselves in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing, you make your melody in your heart unto the Lord. It's hard to have a song in your heart when you're not right with God. You know, and so maybe sometimes God doesn't answer prayer because we're harboring iniquity in our heart. It's a very good thing for us to take stock of ourselves daily. Go through and just say, Lord, show me. I like what David says. I believe it's in Psalm 139. Search me, O God, and look at me, try me, see if there be any wicked way in me. Why? I don't want to have a separation from my God where I can't speak to Him. That's a good thing for all of us to do often is to go and look. Sometimes God simply says this here, just wait. It's a good thing, but it's not the right time. Have you ever got ahead of the plan? Have you ever, maybe you're putting together, the Christmas is right around the corner. I mean, we were looking here tonight at the schedule for it coming up, and the cantata, boom, it's going to be here upon us before we know it. But you're wanting to, you're thinking, well, I can do this here first, and we start putting things together, and we don't read the directions, and there's a certain way you're supposed to do it. Why? Because this piece is going to fit in like this, and then you're going to build everything around it. But, oh, no, I got it all figured out. I know how to do this. And we do, and then we're like, oh, I got ahead of the plan. And I got to take it all apart and put it. Sometimes we get ahead of God's plan. It's a good thing, but at the wrong time. Yeah. And a good thing at the wrong time is a wrong thing then. And so we got to be careful. Sometimes God says, no, just wait. Just wait. Wait on me. Wait on the Lord. Be of good courage. That's what David says here. He says, so don't lose heart. Don't worry about these things here. Don't throw in the towel while you're waiting on Him. But I like what David does. He gives us some things here to do. Some things to do while we're waiting. Some things to do while we're waiting. Waiting is hard. But here he said, let me give you some things to do. First off, while we're waiting, just 4 things real quick tonight. While you are waiting on God. Number 1, look at verse 7. Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice, have mercy also upon me and answer me. While I'm waiting on God, number 1, pray. Pray. In other words, don't say, well, I already prayed to the Lord. I already told Him what I needed, so I'll just sit back here and I'll just wait. No. Just pray. Hear me cry. Hear me, O Lord, while I cry. Lord, I'm calling out for you here. Wait on the Lord. Be of good courage. He will strengthen thine heart. But while I'm waiting, I'm calling out to you. Hear, O Lord, hear my cry. Have your ears open to me, Lord. Don't lose sight of me. Don't keep your ear close down to me. That was David's great cry. He wanted to be heard. Listen, he wanted to be heard of the Lord. Charles Spurgeon, many of us know, he's written a commentary on the Psalms called The Treasury of David, a wonderful commentary. I love what he wrote here, and it kind of dates itself here, but he says it this way: Pharisees care not a fig for the Lord's hearing them. I have no idea what that's supposed to mean, other than it was something that was useless in his time. But he says, Pharisees care not a fig for the Lord's hearing them, so long as they are heard of men, or charm their own pride with their sounding devotions. But with a genuine man, the Lord's ear is everything. Some men, all they want to make sure is that they've been heard, and they'll say, boy, you need somebody to pray. Go talk to that guy. He really knows how to pray. They want to be known as that guy. Or they just like to hear themselves pray. I'm going to ask if you're like that. I hate to hear myself. In college, I was forced to do this here. I was in homiletics class. We stood up and we were to preach a message And so in front of our peers, which is very difficult to do in the first place, but they also recorded us. And then I had to go back to the library. This is back in the day, way back in the day. We had, and I took out the cassette that was used to record me. And I had to stick it in. I had to take my little fuzzy earphones and put them on my ears there. And I had to listen to myself preach. I feel sorry for you. There's many voices I can put in anybody in there, and I can listen to them preach, and I enjoy listening to a lot of different preachers, and I have no problem with that. But man, when it comes to me, every once in a while I'll come in the office, and maybe Brother Andrew is going through and he's uploading or he's playing something, or my wife is playing the sermon before, and as soon as I walk in, I hear that voice, and I turn right back around, walk right back out. I'll come back, I'll talk later. I don't want to hear myself. You know, but he said, but sometimes we get to where we're impressed with how we pray. He says, I like what Spurgeon says that genuine man, the Lord's ear is everything. I don't care how flowery your prayer is. I don't care how many theological words you know. You know what God wants? A heart that cries out to Him. A heart that's like a Hannah who comes before the Lord, and her heart is so burdened down she can't even say the words. She's got so much. Those who come to the altar, or to that place, that secret place that they have, and they come before the Lord, and all they can do is just say, Lord, and the tears begin to flow down, and all you find after they pray there is just a wet spot. And they haven't been able to send 5 words up. Oh, but the Lord hears the heart.
Yes.
And He knows the heart cry of His people. Listen, prayer is not about impressing somebody else. It's not about just doing our duty. It's not just about us saying, hey, I have not missed a single prayer time in the last 27 years. It's not about impressing anybody. You know what? It's what we should be desiring. Hear me, O Lord. By the way, if your desire is to be heard of the Lord, you'll be careful there's nothing between your soul and the Savior.
Yes.
Well, you'll come in clean. You'll come in confessing. But boy, as I read this here and I see the heart cry, notice what David says there. He says, have mercy also upon me. David understood he deserved nothing. He earned nothing. He wasn't coming in on his own works. He was coming in based on the mercy of God. And we're told in Hebrews chapter 4:16, let us come boldly before the throne of grace that we may obtain mercy. And then what next? Then help in time of need. Oh, before I ever get the help, I've got to have mercy, because I know me. But oh, how glad I am when I read Micah 7:18 that I have a God who delights in mercy. And oh, how He wants to give us mercy. Why? Because He wants to have that avenue. He wants to have that way cleared so we can hear His child. And there's nothing to break the fellowship. Oh, would you come to the Lord tonight and say, Lord, I need your help. Our pride will cause us to miss how much we need mercy. If we're not careful, we come to God like that Pharisee that one day. Lord, aren't you glad you got me?
Yeah.
Remember as he looked at that publican and said, look at this guy who's praying to you. Aren't you glad you got me? I mean, look at all that I do, and look how wonderful I am. Aren't you glad I'm on your side? Mm-hmm. Jesus said, God didn't hear that prayer. Notice here, every prayer needs an answer. Every prayer needs an answer. End of verse 7, answer me. You ever say that to God? God, answer me. God, I got to have an answer. Lord, please answer me. David here, I don't know where he's at here. I don't know which part of the wilderness he's in. I don't know what difficulties are upon him. But I know this. He's crying out, God, you got to answer me. God, I got to have an answer. God, please hear me. It's not enough just to put the words up. Lord, I've got to have you hear me. God answers yes. God answers no. God answers sometimes is wait. They're all answers. The only answer is not yes. No, there's a possibility that He may say no. God, remove the thorn from my flesh. I could serve you so much better, the Apostle Paul said. And God said, no. No. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to glory in that thorn then.
Yeah.
Because God had a purpose. Why? I want the power of Christ to be upon you. And so I'm going to say no so you can have more power. I'll take it, God. Look at verse 8. While we're waiting on God, we need to pray. But also while we're waiting on God, we need to seek Him. Stay after Him. When thou saidst, seek ye my face, my heart said unto thee, thy face, Lord, will I seek. Well, if God doesn't answer me, then I'm just not going to pray again. Anybody ever been guilty of, maybe he didn't say that, but, well, the last time I prayed, He didn't answer, so why should I pray now? And He says, no, keep seeking me. Notice again, look at verse 8. When thou saidst, so that's God talking to David. He says, seek ye my face. My heart said, okay, God, I'm going to do this here. The Lord has given the command to seek after Him. I want you to come after me because you know you have a need and you know I'm the answer. Unlike that church in Laodicea that thought they had everything. They didn't need to come to God. They didn't need to ask for anything, but oh, how they were so destitute. He said, you think you got everything, but you don't have half of what you need. The devil would have us get so distracted by this world that we fail to seek the only one who satisfies. Won't you seek me, He says. As we wait on Him, we can get distracted. We can get distracted because He's not hearing us or we're not getting an answer right away. Listen, don't fall for Satan's lies of trying to get you distracted, saying, well, God's not even listening to you. No, don't fall for that. Just keep seeking after Him. By the way, that seek there is not just an occasional look around the corner. We were meeting Mom and Dad tonight for dinner, and so we got to the restaurant first, and that rarely ever happens. And so we got there, and we get inside, and we're out there waiting to get in. And so every once in a while, I just glance outside just to see if I saw the orange truck coming. You can't miss it. But I wasn't just standing at the window like this, you know. I was standing over there at the thing waiting there, and just every once in a while, glance out the window to see if they were there. Just glance real quick. That's not what God's saying. Seek. 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 Look, man, some of you guys here this week, hey, the last several weeks, the last few months, you've had trail cameras up. You've been out walking things. You've been looking for hoof prints. You've been looking for a trail. You've been looking for any signs that somebody's been coming through. You've been on accident leaving corn around. I mean, you've been doing everything. I know none of you do it on purpose. But you're trying to figure out and you're looking for signs. Why? You've been looking for that perfect buck. You've been watching. Some of you know which one I'm talking about. You've been watching him. And boy, you've been searching. You've been waiting, just the right time. Do we seek for God that same way? Oh, I'm going to look everywhere I can. I'm going to look until I'm going to find Him. And I'm going to stay on His trail. He said, that's what I want. The Lord said, hey, seek after me. David said, oh, my heart says, I'm going to seek. But number three, this maybe sound kind of counter to what we just said, but it's not. Number 3, learn how to rest. Learn how to rest while you wait. How many of you have kids that are under we'll say 10 and under? Or you remember your kids from that age frame, okay?
Yeah.
Brother Ethan has done something very naughty. He's put a Christmas tree up already. I'm blaming him. They got the Christmas tree up already. How many of you have your kids at, Christmas Eve evening? If you're like, most tradition, you don't open a present until Christmas morning. How many of you have kids who cannot sleep Christmas Eve? They're itching. They're so excited about tomorrow morning. They cannot rest. Sometimes we're waiting for an answer to God. We don't rest. We're living on the edge. We're so nervous. Oh man, our stomachs, we're just turning. We're nervous. There's a nervousness about us. And instead of us going to sleep at night, we lay awake. And it doesn't matter how many sheep we count, we can't go to sleep. Because our minds are playing, they're just going nuts. You know what God says? Look at verse 9. He says, hide not thy face far from me. Put not thy servant away in anger. Thou hast been my help. Leave me not, neither forsake me, O God of my salvation. When my father and my mother forsake me, then the Lord will take me up. What greater bond is there than for, especially a mom, for her child? There's something about a mom and her child that no matter how old that child gets, they're always still their little boy, their little girl. And there's a I mean, they can. I can still hear the reports of this fella up in Kansas City who went on a rampage and like murdered, like I forget, it was like 6 or 7 people. I mean, just went nuts. They interviewed his mom. First thing out of her mouth, "Oh, he's a good boy." No, he's not. I don't know what happened, but that's not like him. He's a good boy. Everybody else can be against him, but Mom will stand in his corner still. And by the way, I don't hold that against her. David says, whenever my father and my mother forsake me, I can't help, I think of that man who was healed there, I believe it's in John chapter 9, and the Pharisees came to him and they asked him, they said, "Were you the blind man?" He goes, "That was me. What happened to you?" "Well, Jesus came, He healed me of my blindness, and now I see. All I know is I was blind, and now I see." Go get his mom and dad. Bring him in. They bring him in. They bring his mom and dad in. "Is this your son?" "Yes." "Was he born blind?" "Yes." "How was he healed?" "Don't know him." He answers for himself. We're staying out of this. His own mom and dad would not come to his defense. Boy, that was the fear the Pharisees had inflicted upon them. Here's what David says, Lord, I know that no matter what I'm going through, no matter how things are going, I know this much here, that while my heart in verse 9 says God has forsaken me, while my heart is telling me, no, nobody's listening to me, he said, I know better than that. When my own father, my own mother would forsake me, then the Lord would step in and help me out. You ever have those thoughts? Lord, where are you? David's first inclination is to think the Lord's hiding from him. The second thought is that maybe the Lord is angry with him. Then he thinks maybe the Lord's abandoned him. But no, David goes back to his past experiences with this here. Notice he says that he has been his help. Notice there in the middle of verse 9, "Thou hast been my help." That's past tense. I'm going back. I'm reliving all those things. And I remember what you've done in me. I like what Spurgeon had to say about this. He said, "Past help is but a waste of effort if the soul now be deserted." It's summed up very well in the Bible this way, Philippians 1:6, "Being confident of this very thing, that he that hath begun a good work in you, which hath begun a good work in you, will perform it until the day of Jesus Christ." Christ has begun a good work. He's going to see it to the end. He's not going to quit on you. He may bring you through some testing. He may bring you through some difficulties, but you can be sure of this. He will not forsake you. I love the verse that he says there. It says it in Deuteronomy 31. It says it in Joshua chapter 1. It says it in Hebrews chapter, I believe it's 13. He says, "I will never leave thee nor forsake thee." Yeah. What a promise. David says, well, I look around, I begin to ask myself these questions. I'm reminded that you're my help, and I'm reminded this here that even when my father and my mother will forsake me, the Lord will take me up. What does he tell himself? Hey, quit worrying about things. Just trust the Lord. Just rest in Him. I don't see how it's going to happen. That's okay. Rest in Him. Trust Him to take care of things. Pray. While you're waiting on God, pray. While you're waiting on God, seek Him. While you're waiting on God, rest in Him. And then last thing tonight, while you're waiting on God, learn. Learn the lesson He has for you. He's trying to teach us something. He wants us to understand some things. Listen, there's no event in life that comes along that God does not have a purpose for, and He will use it in our life. I'm amazed how God can even use the bad things in my life to help mold me. We do believe Romans 8:28, right? We hate somebody give it to us while we're in the midst of a trial. It's a good thing to get it down right now. And we know that all things work together for good to them who are the called. Love God, called according to His purpose. Listen, God has a purpose, and He's working on us. I love the little song our kids will sing from time to time. He's still working on me to make me what I ought to be. It took Him just a week to make the moon and the stars, sun and the earth, Jupiter and Mars. How loving and patient He must be. He's still working on me.
Yeah.
Verse 11, teach me thy way, O Lord, and lead me in a plain path because of mine enemies. David has a desire to learn of the Lord. He understands some things. One misstep, and that could cost him his life. Notice here, deliver not over into the will of mine enemies, for false witnesses are risen up against me, and such as breathe out cruelty. People have been lying about David. People have been saying things about him that were not true. In one occasion, whenever David had an opportunity to take out King Saul, and he would not do that, he came out to the edge there and he called out to Saul. He said, hey, listen, you're listening to the wrong people. They're telling you I'm after you. I'm not after you. I only want what's best for you, King.
Yeah.
He knew. Saul knew they were lying to him, but it stroked his ego. And he listened. David didn't want the Lord to believe the lies against them. His deliverance would be proof that the Lord did not regard them. Notice what he says here. He asked for two things from the Lord. Number one, he said, teach me thy way. Teach me thy way. You know what that phrase reveals to us is this here, is that number one, David had some humility about him. David wasn't a know-it-all. David looked and said, Lord, I don't know what I'm doing. Now, he had been victorious in battle after battle after battle after battle. He was the most decorated military man in all of Israel. And yet he was saying, Lord, I don't know what to do. Lord, please help that humility. You can't teach somebody who's full of pride.
Right.
Well, you can sure help us, somebody who's got some humility, that teachableness of spirit. Teach me thy way, O Lord, and lead me in a plain path because of mine enemies. He said, Lord, show me what to do. See the obedience of his heart. He has a desire to obey exactly what God has for him. He says, number one, teach me, Lord. Teach me some things. Number two, notice what he says, lead me in a plain path. Help us saw it as well as direction. He says this here, we not only need a map of the way, but a guide to assist us in the journey. In other words, he doesn't want to have any misinterpretation. Well, I thought this was the right way. So no, Lord, don't leave that to me. Lord, make it plain. Make it plain for me to see what I'm supposed to do. We trust ourselves way too much. David here was at a point where he understood, I cannot trust myself. I can't figure out heads from tails. Now, Lord, I'm trying my best to follow you, and every time I try to do what you want me to do, I find myself just getting deeper and deeper and deeper in this stuff. God, if this is what you want, that's fine, but Lord, lead me in a plain path because I don't want to take a wrong step. I don't want to be guilty before you of doing what's wrong. So while we wait, pray. While we wait, seek the Lord. While we wait, rest in Him. While we wait, learn the lesson He has for us. Notice verse 13. I had fainted. I had fainted. What does it mean? He almost gave up. Almost gave up. My wife and I, we got married in June of 1999. And we did one of those things that they tell you not to do. They tell you not to make a bunch of, like all the major moves of life all at once. I didn't know that until after we did this. We got married, major move. We moved, major move, from Florida to Connecticut. And then the major move, I changed jobs. We both did. 3 things you're not supposed to do at the same time. Major moves, major move, major move. We got married in June of '99, and we went off on our honeymoon. We were gone for a week, came back and had a week there at the apartment, and we were trying to get all the things together. And then it was time for me to get started working as the new youth pastor at Heritage Baptist. Oh, it was wonderful. It was great. My first day on the job, they said, climb a ladder and change a light bulb. Now, it wasn't any just normal thing. It was, I think it was a 20-foot ladder. I was climbing a 25-foot ladder. I was climbing up, and I was supposed to change a light bulb. Seems pretty easy, right? So I'm climbing up this ladder, and I'm trying to pull this cage down, and I can't get it down. The only problem is this here. Some of you know this, some of you don't. I am deathly afraid of heights. And all I could see was this ladder coming out from underneath me. And me doing a face plant. I just got married. How will this look coming home to my wife with a nose over here? Can't she revoke the marriage thing? No. I mean, I had all these things going in. And I came into the office, and there was something wrong with the cage, that it was stuck, and I couldn't get it. And I was afraid to pull too hard on it because I was afraid I was going to go down. I had a guy down there holding the ladder, but he was not holding the ladder. He was supposed to be holding like this. Here was his way of holding it. That was not what I wanted. I came into the office. My sister-in-law was our church secretary, and she said I was white as a sheet. Not because I had just sweat every drop of liquid out of my body, but I was just, I was so scared. In fact, I got down to the bottom, and the fellow who was helping me was the Spanish pastor. He had just been hired as well. And he took 2 steps up the ladder, and he goes, oh, no, brother, oh, no. And I'm like, well, no, you get up there. He wouldn't do it. Our pastor was meeting with somebody in the office there. Another pastor was getting ready to start a church down on the shoreline, and he had to come out there, and he climbed up the ladder, there you go. Really? Still, I couldn't get the Spanish pastor to go up, so I had to go back up the ladder, change the light bulb out, and now I had to get this cage back up. It would not go in. And here it is, we're going back. I'm like, just leave it. Pastor came back out, and he put it back in. So that's our first impression. I had about 25 to 30 teens that we started off with. And by the time we got to December, January, about that time frame, we were down running on our usual time, maybe 10 or 15. I felt compelled to write a church growth book at that time. How to destroy your whole congregation in less than 6 months. I remember I came in and I sat down across from him, and I said, I can't do this. And I had a resignation letter written out, signed and everything, and I put it on his desk. I said, I'm sorry. I have failed miserably. We've gone from 30 teens to 35 teens, and look at what we got now. We got 10 of them lucky on a Friday night activity. I'm lucky we've got 15 in Sunday school class on Sunday. I have been a complete and total flop. I was ready to quit. I still don't know why he did this, but he pushed the letter back across his desk and said, I don't accept. I didn't know that was an option. I thought when this slid across, that meant we were done, it was all finished. But he slid it back across and said, that's not, I don't accept. Honestly, I didn't know that was an option. I was dumbfounded. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, and he's like, don't worry. It'll be okay. Just get back in there. I thought, okay, let's see how much lower we can go. because I was convinced I was making a mess of things. I wanted to throw it in the towel. My pastor helped me a whole lot to understand what was going on, is that God was doing a pruning. There was a lot of young people in our youth group that had no desire for the things of God. I didn't see it. I was 24 years old, 25 years old, and all I saw was going from 30 to, my youth group going in half. My pastor helped me to understand that there were some things that God was doing, that it was going to be okay. It was going to be okay. 5 years later, I believe it was 5 years later. Maybe it was about 6 years later. I stood up on a Sunday morning in our teen church because we had so many teens coming we couldn't have them in church anymore. So I stood up in front of 86 teenagers on a Sunday morning and got to teach and to see God do some things, and watching these kids get saved and watching many of them surrender their life to the Lord. I watched one night as we had a big push for an activity, and we had nearly 100 teens show up on a Friday night activity. I had fainted. I was ready to quit. My pastor had enough wisdom to say, no, we're not going to do that. I want you to get your eyes, I want you to be able to see the goodness of the Lord. We all come to points in our lives. Here's David on the run. Twice, Saul's got him. But God works and moves him out of the way. There's David. He's going down to Ziklag, down in the land of the Philistines, and he never knows if he'll ever step foot in Israel again. Even though he's been anointed to be the next king, he doesn't know if he'll ever go back. See him as he comes over the ridge after being dismissed from the Philistines' army, and he comes over the ridge and he sees the smoke coming up, and all of Ziklag is burned to the ground, and everything is gone. His family, everything is gone. And all the men are there weeping, and he's weeping too. He's lost his family as well, and everybody's weeping, and now the men are talking of stoning him. I had fainted. What did the Bible say there in 1 Samuel chapter 30 and verse number 6? The Bible says this, but David encouraged himself in the Lord. I don't know what God did for him that day, but I have a feeling that God said, David, I want you to see some things. I want you to see down the corridor of time here just a little bit. And I want you to see you sitting up on the throne. I want to see things united. I want you to see the things I want you to see the temple that's going to be built for my glory because of all that you're going to do to set up things so that your son will be on the throne one day. I had fainted. Except for this one thing. You could see the goodness of the Lord. In one of David's most low times while he was on the run, his friend Jonathan showed up. The Bible says that Jonathan strengthened his hand in the Lord. He reminded him that he would one day sit on the throne. Jonathan was so excited about it. He said, I can't wait to stand next to you. Jonathan didn't know he would be killed in battle. He would never see his friend David again, but in Jonathan's mind, he could see him standing right next to his friend David and serving him. Not competing for the throne, but serving his friend. Tonight, there may be something that you have been seeking the Lord about. Maybe it seems He's not listening. It seems maybe He's abandoned you, or maybe He's angry at you and will not hear you. Can I just remind you what the psalmist says here in verse 14 again? Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and He shall strengthen thine heart. I love how he finishes that verse off. Wait, I say, on the Lord.
Yes.
Here's a living testimony for you. I was there too. It's hard to wait. But can I just tell you, it's worth waiting. Keep waiting on the Lord. Make sure you're right. Make sure there's nothing between your soul and your Savior. But while you're waiting, why don't you take time to pray and draw close to Him? While you're waiting, why don't you take time to seek Him so you can draw into a closer relationship with Him? While you're waiting, rest in Him. Trust that He has all things under control and He's leading you in the right direction. And then while you're waiting, make sure you're learning some things while you're sitting. Make sure you're learning some things while He's working on you. Be teachable. Be willing to listen and hear the lessons. Father, help us tonight.